Welcome back to Marvel Maniac and MCU Aftershow. This is your host, Eric Cicada, aka Mr. Honest, back with you for the second episode of Moon Knight and our 103rd episode. Should I just keep saying the number of episodes in our episode? Because it builds hype towards the next big milestone? We'll think on that one. Anyway, this show's really cool, and I'm really happy I decided to start covering it. And the fact that I'm watching it week to week as if it's sort of coming out, I kind of get to in part relive the experience of people who are watching it week to week. That being said, let's do a little tiny recap of last week. We know Steven, a quiet British man, works at a museum. He discovers Mark Spector, his other half, and he has a secret life. And Steven, he locks himself to his bed at night. He puts tape over the door. He does everything he can just in case someone takes over his being. And it doesn't work. Like when Mark wakes up in Steven's body, he literally takes over and is able to just undo all the things Steven did to keep him there. I already am liking that quiet dynamic between the two characters. However, that starts to grow in this episode. Khonshu and the Scarab became a big focus about midpoint through last episode. The Scarab kind of being the moving the device, the Infinity Stone, the time machine, the DeLorean. It's the thing that is driving the plot forward. A MacGuffin, as writers will call it. However, I don't like calling it that because that makes it too layman's terms. Actually, you know what? It kind of breaks the fourth wall of this is just a TV show. I don't like thinking like that. Like I like being very engaged and what's the word I'm looking for? Immersive. I want it to be immersive. And of course, last week's episode ends with the mysterious Jackal confrontation at the museum where Steven is being chased, and it is terrifying. There are a lot of aspects of this movie and the concept that only Steven can see this stuff. It reminds me of the series Smile, the scary movies. Don't watch this if you're young. They're scary movies. But the thing is, the way that the spirit or Khonshu kind of is able to show himself whenever he feels like it, and there's this kind of tormenting factor for Steven. It's more like a scary movie at the beginning than it really is the unveiling of a superhero, which is definitely the cooler side of things. And I mean, we go on to learn quite a lot in this episode, including the fact that Steven / Mark is married. Now, a little bit, if you can even think on this just for a bit, it makes you think. There's a few things that make you wonder, how often does Mark, take over Steven's body? Well, quite a lot, because in the last episode, he woke up a few days later in his bed. And in this episode, he has a place that Steven discovers, like a lock-up security place. And when Steven goes in there, he finds a whole little sleeping setup, a cot, a bag, passports, the Scarab, everything that is playing into the Mark role. Yeah. And, there's a little bit of a twist that I remember personally, but I won't say it. But I really want to say it. Okay, skip ahead 30 seconds from right now. I'm going to give you a couple extra seconds. Okay, what I love about the idea of Steven being the main person and Mark not being, he's the part of Steven's reality. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but it's actually the other way around. Mark, we learn from many signs, the fact that he has a wife, Layla, who's a pretty cool character, and she has a big part in the upcoming show. We'll talk about her in a little bit. There's factors that kind of hint that Steven is the alternate version of Mark instead of Mark being the alternate version of Steven. We learn a lot more about that in later episodes. Like I said, I've seen this show roughly about 2 years ago. I think it's been 3 years going on that this show has been out, 2 or 3 years. And that's just absolutely insane. Is time flying off the wall for anybody else? So even in this point of the story, Steven wakes up and really dissociative identity disorder, a real kind of thing he'd do is what I would do. I would be in denial of this. I would wake up and go to work just like him. There's no way that could have happened that last night. There was no Jackal. There was no mysterious Moon Knight. He doesn't know the name of him yet, but it's all just a bad dream. the subtlety of him being very worried about it with the locks on the doors, the tape, tying himself up. It goes to show that he's subconsciously aware of something going on that he can't explain, but I think he's still willing to rule all of it out as crazy. One point of the episode says he's going to go to a mental hospital, have them put all the pills in me that they can, and so I don't have to see you anymore because I'm not supposed to see you. And oh my God, that, I totally understand that. And there's a lot of torment that Steven goes through this episode that it can be written off as funny, and like you might laugh at some of his worries and his anxieties. However, they really do reflect pretty well like someone who's going through panic, under a lot of pressure, not knowing how to explain themselves or what they have done. It's kind of an isolated feeling because we only see it from his perspective. In his perspective, nobody else can see what's happening. And that's not disturbing for me, but it's something I just kind of, if I think about it a little bit, it hits me, The security footage, which Steven was about to blow this guy's mind, to show him the jackal, him getting chased, only him. He was getting chased by nothing, and he caused damage. So he got fired from his job at the museum for the damages and erratic behavior, leading him to like more isolation, which definitely leads him to following the truth and really what's going on with him. He can't basically even handle it anymore. It's starting to affect his whole life. Khonshu, his presence in the episode is much greater than the first. We get some hints in the first episode of Khonshu's presence. However, that hallway scene where Steven walks out of the storage facility and the lights keep flickering and he looks behind him and nothing's there, and then he turns around and then we see that he's there, and then he turns around again and he's not there, and then he's just chasing him, and lots of tension because Khonshu's scary as heck. Even like as you get to know him during the series, if you do, spoilers. You know what? I'm sorry about the spoiler warnings. I just get this feeling that most of you are listening, have seen this already because it's been out. But maybe, hopefully, some people missed it. And here's your after show with some mild spoilers. But I'm doing my best to let you know about those. Anyway, yeah. So Khonshu is a bigger part of this episode, and he yells at Steven, especially down in a later scene where he's with Arthur Harrow, and it's kind of actually funny. He's like, is he telling you to kill me right now? And he's like, kill him. Like, he knows him so well, Arthur Harrow, which brings a lot of depth and personality to that character. Ethan Hawke, I like to say that he usually puts himself into a role. I definitely feel like Arthur Harrow is someone completely different from Ethan Hawke. It'd be funny if Ethan Hawke wasn't the actor and I got that wrong. But no, I remember because I feel like I haven't seen him in a while. And well, he still looks like Ethan Hawke. He's just got long hair, but he plays the part so well. It reminds me, I can't compare it to Walter White in Breaking Bad, but the dedication to the character where you almost can't even see the actor. You just see the character. That's just, there's nothing like it. So for this show to be granted with such a fantastic, to have a fantastic actor to hold the presence as the villain, because, let's look back at Falcon and the Winter Soldier, okay? It's been years, I could say this now. Carly Morgenthau, she was like the leader of the Flag Smashers. She wasn't the best antagonist. She didn't have our hearts at all. She wasn't as likable, and it's a good example of how your villain needs to be just as compelling as your hero, in my opinion. That's, I don't know. That's superhero 101, if you ask me. And I won't criticize Marvel, but because I have a double standard for Marvel stuff, but every now and again, if I could see something and be honest about it, I will. This episode is half me over explaining why I'm being critical of the show at all, when the show's just fantastic. And I don't want to give off that impression that I don't want to be doing this, because I don't want to mess it up. That's a way better way to describe it. So Layla, a new character, finds Steven. She is Mark's estranged wife, and she confronts him while he's just still processing everything as Steven. So she knows Mark. He's an American guy. By the way, I haven't Googled this because I think it's funny, and I still don't remember or know. Is Oscar Isaac British? Like, is that? I remember last week I was like, his accent's so natural, and but so is his American one. What a good actor! I don't even want the answer. I think he's British. What if I'm wrong? I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, Layla at first, her presence sort of adds to like the stress and complexity of Steven's situation. She mistakes him for Mark because he is Mark. He looks like Mark. And how can you explain to someone what's going on here? It's one of those things. It's like you're isolated because it's actually hard to explain the crazy supernatural thing that's going on to you. You wouldn't believe me, says Mark. And he didn't actually say that, but like that's the vibe I get. And when she goes back to his flat apartment, which I'm going to start calling my place my flat. I like that. Does that mean apartment though? Or can it be any place you live? Well, he takes her back there, and Mark is begging Steven in the mirror to don't make her a part of this, not to make her a part of this. Don't let her in on what's going on. She won't be safe. Layla asks Mark what's in the bag, or Steven, I'm sorry, what's in the bag. And before he can make an excuse or stop her from looking into it, she finds the passport and, of course, the scarab. And there's definitely a history between them and this item, and she kind of says, why are you even doing this? So you could keep it for yourself? Steven doesn't understand the dynamics of Layla and Mark, and the dynamics of Mark or of Khonshu. There's a lot of information that Steven is getting very quickly. Layla isn't disbelief in Steven's personality change with the British accent, and that adds a lot of emotional weight because Steven, it's genuine. It's genuine. He believes that he is that person speaking British, but from her perspective, if you can imagine it, that your husband, your lifelong friend, somebody you've known forever, they just start talking to you in a British accent and like in your mind pretending to not know you. Without natural things at play here, one would be offended, which you can kind of get on her side. It's a terrible moment because you want to yell at the TV and say, "No, this is what's happening," but also that's some great TV right there. So yeah, she reveals that she has knowledge about the scarab, her knowledge, and it hints at her past with Mark. Lots of tension. I said that she brings like a lots of tension because he apparently has a wife you didn't know about. And that trust between them we'll see evolve in one way or another over the next few episodes. This is only a 6-episode series, so we're already a third of the way through. Forgive me if I'm jumping all over the place. I struggle with structure, as any of you might know if you've listened before, but it all comes straight from the heart. We have a feedback section now. It's marvelmaniacpod@gmail.com. The feedback box that I had linked is closed for now, but you can send me any feedback, all of your thoughts, theories, anything you're just excited about, Marvel related, MCU related, at marvelmaniacpod@gmail.com. That's marvelmaniacpod@gmail.com. You could also leave us a comment along with the tip, which you would find in the episode description. That is not by any means necessary. It's just I almost said it's just encouraged. No, it's just something nice, and you don't have to do that. You are loved and appreciated just for being here. I'm going to leave that section in to be because I don't want to re-record the part where I'm talking about the tip jar. I hate talking about it, but it's right for me to do it. Everyone has something like that, right? Okay. Let me just break down my self-doubt instead of this episode of Moon Knight. Mental health is important, people. I'll always say it. I'm going to keep that section in because you got to know how to love yourself and your quirks. And I think I'm kind of funny sometimes. Like I can't keep a great secret. It's not because I want to spill the beans. It's because I accidentally would. Anyway, back to the show. Harrow he fake arrests Steven, and he brings him to his facility and kind of shows that it's like a community of some sorts. Is preemptive justice ethical is a good question. Like this is where kind of Steven has this reality breaking moment where if you're like that, would you like judge a child if they didn't meet your scales? The thing he does on his arm where it shows the scales, and if it's balanced, they don't kill them. If it is, they kill them. He didn't deny that. So that's kind of what takes Mark or Steven, the duo, a step back from Arthur Harrow, even though he completely understands, because another revelation, he is Khonshu's former avatar. So he knows everything he's going to say. And he really actually does know Khonshu. I mean, like, he cuts him off at many different angles. And this is when you start to even look down on Khonshu yourself. But at the same time, for me, I was thinking, I don't know. He's the bad guy, so like there might be more to Khonshu that we really are yet to know. You know, a little bit more of that story. And Amit, the other god, the new god that Mark. Jeez, I'm mixing up all the names. That Harrow is trying to contact. He wants to be its avatar. I'm calling it because it's a scary monster, and I know it's a woman, but you know, depicted on the walls as a scary monster. I'm not going to tell you anything else. I'm so bad at not spoiling the show. And this is supposed to be a 15 to 20 minute episode. I'm working on structure, Marvel Maniacs. So forgive this episode. It's got some, it's got some wood dust. You know, we're carving. We're putting all the layers up. We're still building to this thing. You know, it'll be up and running fully at one point. That meaning my brain. And I hope you can appreciate the slow transition to being more coherent and understandable and on topic. However, sometimes you just got to jump all over the place. And doing that, when Marc is with Harrow, he kind of puts up an understanding, warm front for Marc. I keep using the name Marc when it is totally Steven in control, learning everything about Marc. I'm sure I'll be getting. I'm not trying to make you up or get you confused either. It's not that confusing because of how distinctively different the characters are. So wonderful performance on Oscar Isaac's part. The reason that Harrow wants the scarab is because it's sort of a compass to find Amit, the god that he wants to align with, and use his powers to judge people before they even commit crimes or break any rules or anything like that. And if it deems the person not worthy, Harrow takes your power in your life source. I mean, I'm assuming if it was a superhero, it would be power. I don't know how well he'd do against heroes, but he takes their life force. Very similar to Agatha and Agatha All Along, that magic that she uses from time to time. We won't go too into detail. If you haven't seen that show, you should go watch it and listen to our after shows if you want, like after each episode. They're fun. And we covered many more Marvel shows in the past. Always stay tuned for more coverage and send marvelmaniacpod@gmail.com email if you have any ideas, something you'd like to see covered from like an animated series that I missed, or you want to see X-Men 97 covered. I might cover that. I might not. I'm thinking I will because I love it. So Steven has another encounter with this jackal, and they have a fight on the roof. So the funny part of this is Steven himself summons the suit. When the Moon Knight Mark Spectre, he becomes Moon Knight. He has his own suit. So Steven actually summoned his own suit, which is kind of funny because it's an actual suit and then a mask, but he does look quite dapper. I gotta say, I like the style, and I want the Fortnite skin now. There's a Moon Knight Fortnite skin, and it's so cool. And it looks just like the show. I mean, they put a lot of detail into it. I want to record and do video game related things with this community once we grow a little bit more, and maybe Fortnite, Marvel Rivals, some stuff like that. We can have a game night or something. Just an idea. This episode is totally being used to talk about other things in between the main things. And I'm getting ready for something very big for the holidays. I'm not going to guarantee it until I start doing it. But just stay tuned for like a lot more episodes before the end of the year. That's all I will say. And to watch What If Season 2. So Steven's introduction in his Moon Knight suit wasn't as like serious as it probably needed to be. He was making some like great jabs. He was doing his little fighting pose thing, and you could tell it does make him stronger. He threw a pretty good punch. However, to finish the fight, Marc asked Steven to give him full control of Moon Knight, and he does, and he takes on the situation like a pro. Steven definitely feeling betrayed by the whole thing going on with Marc and Khonshu and his body. Marc reveals a little bit more about that deal, and that's why Steven is just feeling used. And Khonshu warns Marc about losing Steven's body to Layla, meaning he won't ever be able to come back out as Marc. He'll be stuck in his head. So we now know kind of why Harrow wants the scarab, and why it's necessary to go where they're going to go to retrieve it. I think it's implied that Harrow is going to Egypt, and Steven goes to bed, and at the end of the episode, we wake up. I think he's Marc at that point because he's not surprised. And he opens his drapes, and he is in Egypt. So it goes to show that there's not like an Incredible Hulk factor. Well, kind of, because two people are living in one body until they combine, apparently. I personally think that Bruce Banner, he just dug that big old Hulk down into a corner, and he's still in there somewhere. I like this episode so far. I feel like the pacing of it was fast and right to the point. Doesn't like drag. Some stories do, and I'm not gonna lie to you. Some of the Netflix shows, they do drag a little bit sometimes on meaningless plot device, or like just the fact that they have to have like 13 episodes. You could tell that it drags sometimes. I think that's the privilege with Disney Plus. They can really be given the amount of episodes they need to thrive. Whether that be like Agatha all along with 9, wanted to keep it in line with WandaVision. That show didn't feel drawn out at all. Or a show like this, Moon Knight, where they know that it's a big story, but it can be told across 6 episodes instead of 10, which will make it way more exciting. I love Steven's Moon Knight suit. I think it's one of the funniest, fun part of the episodes. I like Harrow as a villain and a complex person, because he truly, again, he believes what he's doing is right, but it is more self-serving than someone like Thanos. Of course, he is kind of desperate to become the avatar of this other god. It almost seems like he's doing it in revenge, like he wants revenge on Khonshu because he was his former avatar, you know. I think it was really cool to introduce Layla in this episode. And when Marc does something out of line now, it makes you think of her, it makes you think of her worrying of him. It makes you wonder a little bit more about their relationship and how he actually got to where he is. How did they fall out of contact for so long? I think it's obvious in this episode that he wanted to keep her safe, but to some extent he could have even let her in on that without getting her in trouble, in my opinion. I'm no Moon Knight. So even in an episode like this, where there needs to be a lot of writing and action kind of when they can, I think they did a great balance of it. I love the character enough to see him engaging in conversation and the story itself. It's not all about the big battles for me. It's about using the format of a Disney Plus show where you have way more time than you would usually a movie to develop a character in a way we haven't seen in the MCU before. And that's what I was hoping Secret Invasion would do. We're going to talk about Secret Invasion because I like Samuel L. Jackson. I love that character. It took some turns that we'll talk about it when it comes. Anyway, this has been a fun episode talking to you about Moon Knight episode 2. I hope you're liking the coverage. I'm going to keep going until we finish. Maybe an after show, maybe not. I know it's different for me to be covering a show week to week that's all out, and you can watch it all and just hear my episode by episode breakdown. I just like to keep in mind that there are people that are going to be watching this for the first time for a long time, and I would like to have my show available in some ways to people wanting a companion show to their viewing experience. I know it's not perfect. I know I had to do spoiler warnings and stuff, but I'm doing my best to kind of like watch this with fresh eyes and give you my take in that sense. Remember that there's something big in this podcast. I'm going to try and do a little Christmas extravaganza for us all here, and by that, it's taking on a lot of work, but there is a lot of fun episodes to come. Our next episode, I'm not even going to tell you. We're just going to be here on Friday, and I don't know what I'm doing yet. I'm just kidding. Come back Friday, and we will have a new episode for you, and then Moon Knight, and then on a new adventure together as Marvel Maniacs. MarvelManiacPod@gmail.com. Do not hesitate. Email me something. If you like the episode, if you don't like the show, and you think I could do better, hold off on that. Hold up on voting me down low on Apple and give me an email, and I would love to hear your feedback and better myself. Trust me, that's all I want to do is better myself. I mean, it might take a while. However, I even feel, and I will acknowledge, that I've talked way too much about myself during this episode. but I was also hitting the beats. And when I started this podcast on my previous podcast, which isn't even anywhere available, I took it down. That's kind of the thing I've always been going for, is I do have good takes, but I also like being myself. And that is a ranty, coherent, at the top of my head type person sometimes. I see even putting those words together sounded really dumb to me, and I'm very mean to myself. And I'm done saying all that because this is a superhero show, and I am Mr. Honest. Not a superhero, but your superhero expert. Not even an expert. Ryan Airy knows all the comic references. It was so cool to have him as a guest. Like, I'm going to probably be talking about that in every episode for the next year. This has been Marvel Maniac and MCU Aftershow. I'm your host, Eric Cicada, a.k.a. Mr. Honest. And until next time, Avengers, disassemble.